Dr. Helmut Schmitz had a deeper spiritual side to his personality that few would ever discern, for he kept it well covered. He was a complex and solitary man with a fascination for power, and this translated into his obsession with the invention and development of the Narganosine transmitter. His life could only have meaning in his eyes if he were able to fulfill a higher purpose, a grand solution to the tangle of insurmountable issues facing the world. Whether social, medical, environmental, political, scientific, or even aesthetic, they were always at the back of his mind, spurring him on to work many hours and spend time away from home. He and his wife lived in a large apartment at Burg Eltz, not far from Frankfurt. Burg Eltz was originally built in the 12th century and had not been damaged by war. Atop a massive rock, it was a perfect location to hide his ultra-high-tech laboratory and perform the secret experiments that required deep underground caverns that were also connected to the catapult pathways or atmospheric wormholes. The view over the mountains and forests was spectacular. Although their apartment was not far, the only way Frida could get time with him was by taking the superfast trip to Sutherland via the atmospheric wormhole and working on the reception desk of the Research and Development Laboratory. But now she had a new relationship with the cat, and behind the cat was Elgard. She was already in her 50s, yet she embarked on a liaison with the spirit of Elgard that was as adventurous as it was dangerous. Since she and her husband had no children or grandchildren, and she was bored with the house and local social functions, she had been listless for some time. Nothing interested her. But now she was in love, at least mentally. The only way she could engage physically with Elgard was through her husband, who was becoming more schizophrenic as time went on. Sometimes she would engage via the cat, but the relationships had become very strange. Helmut, who used to love that cat, now reviled the creature and sometimes became quite violent towards it. The feeling was mutual, and the cat would spit at Helmut uncannily. Helmut also sensed there was something different in Frida's attitude towards him. In fact, she was interacting with Elgard through Helmut's body, and indeed, Helmut could feel an energy inside his being that was alien and vicious. Sometimes he wanted only to tear himself apart, to rid himself of that alien and antagonistic feeling within. He felt invaded. He decided to employ Carla as an additional administrative assistant at the laboratory. He saw that since Frida was more often at the lab, Carla had much free time, and he wanted to use her energies. Besides, Carla made him feel somehow safer in this atmosphere of weirdness that seemed to pervade the research and development premises. Frida was strongly against this move, but Helmut could be stubborn, and he prevailed. He allowed nothing and no one to interfere with the progress of his life's work. Helmut felt better with Carla around. She was quiet, intelligent, focused, and a good energy. He noticed that Carla's relationship with the cat had also changed dramatically. One day, he noticed the cat bristling, arching its back, and spitting at her while she was preparing the coffee for the lab team. He resolved to find a quiet moment when the others were not around to discuss the nascent phenomena that he began to detect around the lab. "Carla," said Helmut, "have you noticed anything different around here?" "No, Dr. Schmidt, sir," replied Carla. "I have only recently started working here, so I don't see that I could make any comparison." "Well, can you feel anything odd in the atmosphere sometimes?" "Dr. Schmidt's?" inquired Carla. "Carla, you have known Frida and myself for several years, since you were a child when Bayanis and you arrived from Bosnia. You always played with Nubin since he was a kitten, but now your connection with him is totally antagonistic. What happened?" Carla spoke slowly. "Yes, Dr. Schmitz, Nubin acts that way towards you also. But he has become very affectionate with Frau Schmitz, which was not the case earlier. Yes, something has changed. Ever since Frau Schmitz disappeared from the crypt that night." Helmut felt alarmed. "What crypt?" He became suspicious. "What do you know about that? Have you been going into places you should not go? You know the ruins are off limits for you." "Dr. Schmitz," responded Carla, "I have never gone there, but that night I was watching the new moon through my window, and I saw people there. Then later on, Bayanis asked me if I knew where Frau Schmitz was. I felt something strange might have befallen her. But then she was in your study at the house, so I thought nothing more of it." "Carla," Helmut weighed his words, "Carla, have you noticed anything else about Frida since that evening?" "No, Dr. Schmitz. It's just that she doesn't want me to be here at the laboratory, so I feel a bit awkward when she looks at me with those thoughts in her mind." "Carla, can you hear her thoughts?" "No, sir, of course not. It's just a feeling I get sometimes." Just then, an alarm flashed on Helmut's electronic watch, and he left for the private area of the lab where the airlocks were located. His guests had reached from Vikingur's laboratory through the atmospheric high-speed wormhole system. The Abbot and Professor Walter von Plettenberg were followed by John Jarecki and 3 of the technicians from Battersea. Helmut welcomed them warmly and led them towards his personal office. Suddenly, a black cat leapt into the air as if it had been electrocuted. Wild-eyed, with fur bristling, it tore down the corridor and vanished. Helmut suddenly felt queasy and started to sway dangerously. John Jarecki leapt to his aid and supported him gently for the rest of the way to the office, where he lowered him carefully into his easy chair. The Abbot and the Magister exchanged looks. "You didn't tell us that Elgard was here as well?" Dr. Helmut paled. He understood what had been happening to him. The combined energies of Abbot Crishelm and Magister von Plettenberg were too much for the phantom. He had been ejected sharply from Helmut's body and only just made it back into the cat. Helmut felt strangely light and free. He took a glass of cool water and came to his senses. "Okay," said the Abbot, "how did Elgard get in here? How did you breach the security like that? What's going on? How can we trust you with the instruments now? What arrangement have you made with Elgard? How is Frida involved? You have to tell us everything." Helmut felt like a schoolboy who had been caught in the act of stealing some valuable item from his school. He felt he was standing trembling before the headmaster and the dean. Such stupidity. His dreams of grandeur collapsed around him, and he wanted the floor beneath him to open up and swallow him. But von Plettenberg and the Abbot were quiet and calm. They had to ascertain what damage had been done. It was a severe security breach. They understood Helmut's weakness. Helmut explained the séance and what had happened with Frida. "I am so sorry," said Helmut. "Is it possible to break the contract and rid me of this phantom and his grip on my soul?" he softly inquired. "Dr. Schmitz," said von Plettenberg, "this is your Achilles' heel, your fascination with the power. But you are not strong enough, nor clean enough for this. Your spirit is good, but weak. This is why we brought John with us together. He will remain with you. From now on, you must check every decision, however small, with him. He will shadow you constantly, day and night. You have no option but to accept this. You will have to kill the cat and send Frida to her sister in Boston. Carla will take care of the house duties. You must rescind Vianney's privileges in the lab, and his work will be kept strictly to duties in the house, garden, and forest areas. I will replace your technicians with the 3 who came with us today. I am taking the existing ones back with me to Vigingur for rehabilitation and training. My animals will check the apartment and the lab regularly for any other presences. You have to continue with your work under this kind of supervision. You can consider it a form of house arrest. The power is highly toxic, and once you get contaminated and corrupted, we have to take extraordinary measures to keep it in check. Do you understand?" "Yes," said Helmut bleakly. "Do you accept these conditions?" "Yes, I do." "Then begin with Frida immediately. My hawk will take care of the cat." The Abbot settled into his chair, almost hidden beneath the folds of his black robes, his ample beard and steel-rimmed glasses. A calm and powerful spiritual atmosphere surrounded him, and pervaded the room. Von Plettenberg had finished admonishing Helmut and poured himself a drink of cool, clear water, joining Abbot Chisholm in the silence. John left with Helmut, and when they returned, Helmut was composed. Viannis had just left with Frida, driving her to catch the Lufthansa flight to Boston at Frankfurt Airport. However, he was clearly perturbed. Frida had a grim face that reflected her own displeasure, mixed with concerns for her sister's urgent health issues that had come up so unexpectedly and so inconveniently. She had been unable to find Nubin to bid him a fond farewell, and this also irritated her. She suspected she was being bundled off. She felt an uncontrollable urge to wring Carla's neck, mixed with almost tearful feelings of being abandoned and betrayed by Elgard, who seemed to have vanished. She could not feel his presence at all, and that wretched cat seemed to have failed her completely. She fumed and felt miserable, snapping occasionally at Viannis, who drove down the mountain in a silent, taciturn manner. Frida flicked through the radio stations and stopped at the jazz channel, which was playing Miles Davis and John Coltrane. It captured her mood, and she put the music on loudly. Viannis was grateful.